Meeting will come to order. Will you all rise to the Pledge of Allegiance? Mrs. Panetta, would you lead us?
Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Manager, Wendy, folks here in the hall, and folks at home. First on the agenda tonight would be the, actually this should have been moved, but it would be the approval of the minutes. Mrs. Panetti, you are here, you're okay with that? I'd like to ask somebody to please make a motion to table.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Panetta moves to table the minutes of January 7th, seconded by the chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda, we have a request from the YMCA for banners announcing Camp Sachem Summer Camp. They would like to hang a street banner throughout the months of April and May to promote their summer camp, Camp Sachem, to the Saugus residents. For the month of May, we are requesting the crossing of Main and Vine Streets, and on Essex Street for the month of May, for April, it would be May and Vine, and for May, it would be Essex Street. Is there any questions on this?
Madam Chair,
Selectman Panetta?
I see that the YMCA last year also asked for in April and May on the two different locations. With that said, I would like to make a motion to allow them to hang their banner for the month of April at Main and Vine, and also for the month of May at Essex Street.
Mrs. Panetta's motion is seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have the annual report of the Beano for the Knights of Columbus.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Selectman Castanetti makes a motion to accept the report to the file, seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda, we have the Fire Department. There's a request to accept a gift of defibrillators from Wheelabrator. Eric Lucier, is anybody here from Wheelabrator this evening to discuss this? Okay. Eric Lucier from Wheelabrator has sent a letter on defibrillators, and the plant manager would like to make a donation of 6 automatic external defibrillators to the town of Saugus. 4 of the defibrillators will go to the fire department to replace 4 older units, and they will be placed on the frontline apparatus. The other 2 units will be placed in strategic locations at the town hall to protect not only the employees at the town hall, but also the citizens of Saugus that have business at the town hall. The total value of the 6 units is approximately $10,200. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Selectman Castanetti moves to accept the donation of the 6 defibrillators valued at $10,200 from Wheelabrator, seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next, we have the police recommendation for Fox Hill Yacht Club requesting a yellow curb in front of their property. There is a letter here to the entire board that they would like the yellow lines to be no parking in a 20-foot zone in each direction. Sergeant Van Steensberg, would you like to speak on this?
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you said, the board of directors from the yacht club had sent a letter back in the fall because they were concerned about parking by the entrance and exit. They were afraid that when they had large gatherings and there was a lot of cars coming in and out, vehicles parked on Ballard Street was causing a problem. Did a site survey. We agree that it would be appropriate to limit the parking on Ballard Street by the entrance and the exit, and it just made sense to follow the current traffic rules and regulations where no parking 20 feet within an intersection, we'll treat that the same way. So the police department's recommendation is that yellow curb be painted 20 feet on either side of the entrance and exit to signify no parking. And we would think that once the springtime comes up and everything gets freshened up, that'd probably be a good time to do that if the board wants to follow through with that recommendation.
Thank you very much. Do any of the members of the board have any questions of Sergeant Van Steensberg?
No.
What are the wishes of the board?
Madam Chair?
Selectman Panetta?
I will make a motion to allow for the request to paint the curbing yellow, signifying no parking 20 feet on either side of the entrance exit to the parking lot, as recommended by the police department.
Seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is the Collector Treasurer. She has a request for approval of MWRA pollution abatement loan. Mrs. Hatch?
Good evening, Madam Chairperson and board members. This evening, I am before you for your approval on a Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust loan in the amount of $1,581,291. This loan represents the 7th phase of the ongoing sewer abatement project that the town has been a part of as a result of the administrative consent order issued where we were required to reduce our sewer overflow in Saugus. It began in 2007. This is the 7th phase. The loan application was originally submitted in an amount of $2.176 million, and as a result of successful bidding, the actual price of the project came in at 1.5. So in order to sort of reserve that authorization that town meeting gave to us, the application was revised and submitted for a lesser amount with the DEP's approval. If we hadn't done that, then the full 2.17 that was authorized by town meeting would have been lost at this point, and then we would go back for a subsequent approval. So this sort of reserves it towards the next phase of the project. The documentation that I had sent to you originally back on the 20th of January for the 21st meeting included documentation from the attorneys that had your meeting date of the 21st. So the packet I provided to you this evening has the exact same content. That all remains the same, but the dates have been changed, obviously, to reflect your vote this evening. In the packet on the second page is the vote that is required by the board. If the board wishes to move forward with this loan, that is the vote that would need to be made this evening. And I have all the legal documents here to be signed as well.
Thank you. Do any of the members have any questions of Mrs. Hatch?
Can I ask 2 questions, Madam Chair?
Selectman Panetta?
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Hatch. 2 quick questions. I see that the interest rate we're paying is, it seems quite low, 0.11%. Is that the rate that we've been paying ongoing, or is this do you have to renegotiate the rate every time we go into a different phase?
Well, there's no negotiation on the rate. It's what is approved and authorized by the Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust Board.
Mm-hmm.
It obviously reflects the market and the borrowing rates of today. Early on in the project, I think we were hovering right around the 2% mark, and at that time, 2% was fabulous through the state revolving fund.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're getting interest rates lower than that on general obligation borrowings now. So this rate does reflect what is happening in the market today.
And my second question was, so we're beginning phase 7. How many more phases do we have left?
Well, I thought it was a 10-year project. That the town manager might be able to address that a little bit better than I. I sort of stay on the financial end of things, but I thought it was at least a 10-year project.
Yeah, the last I heard, I thought we were a little bit ahead of schedule.
Mm.
I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, through you, can the town manager
Please.
ask?
Well, could you just repeat the question?
We were talking about, we're now heading into phase 7, and my question to Mrs. Hatch was, how many phases are left? I thought it was a 10-year project, but I thought the last time I heard the process that we were going through, that we were a little ahead of schedule. Can you give us a quick update on that, please?
On the sewer, the project, as far as I know, is not necessarily ahead of schedule, but it's under budget. And there's certain phases that they are planned out each year. and I believe we are in the seventh year of that project.
So, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, through you one more time. Phase 7, does that indicate the 7th year? So will next year be Phase 8 for the 8th year? So the phases represent the years?
I'd have to take a look, but I think that each year is one phase of the project. But I do think that how they have it set up is within the map, they've designated certain areas, and those are the phases, and they've been done, I think. on an
Yeah, that's
annual
what I thought as well. I thought I saw a map at one point, and it
I
had the
believe
different
there's 10,
phases
I
that were
believe
indicated.
there's 10 different sectors that they identified as the most in need, and that they're in the 7th sector at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Do we have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'll make the motion.
Selectman Castanetti.
That the town shall issue a bond or bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $1,852,675, the bonds, pursuant to Chapter 29C and 44 of the general laws and votes of the town, passed May 16, 2011, Article 5, and June 25, 2012, Article 6, for the construction of sewers and other water pollution control facilities identified in such vote as the project. 2, that in anticipation of the issuance of the bonds, the treasurer is authorized to issue an interim loan note or notes, the notes, from time to time in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $1,852,675. And 3, that each bond or note shall be issued as a single registered security and sold to the Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust, the trust, at a price determined pursuant to the financing agreement. 4, that the treasurer is authorized to determine the date, the form, the maximum interest rate, and the principal maturities of each bond and note, and to execute a financing agreement or agreements with the trust with respect to the sale of the bonds and notes, such date, form, and maturities, and the specific interest rate or rates of the bonds and notes to be approved by a majority of the Board of Selectmen and the treasurer, and evidenced by their execution of the bonds or notes. 5, that all action taken to date by the town and its officers and agents to carry out the project and its financing, including the execution of any loan commitment or agreement by the treasurer, are hereby ratified, approved, and confirmed. And 6, that the treasurer and the other appropriate town officials are each hereby authorized to take any and all actions necessary or convenient to carry out the provisions of this vote, including execution and delivery of the financing agreement or agreements, and the project regulatory agreement or agreements relating to the project.
Mr. Castanetti's motion is seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Thanks.
take a 1-minute, 2-minute recess to sign the document.
Yes. The board is in recess for 2 minutes. Back to order. Thank you all for your patience. Next on the agenda is the annual report. It's a draft of the annual report to the ABCC. Have you all had a chance to review this? And what we would be looking for is to make a motion for Wendy to submit this report on our behalf.
Madam Chair, I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Selectman Panetta moves to authorize the clerk to submit the report to the ABCC, the annual report, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much, Wendy. Next, we have the Selectmen's draft FY15 budget. Are there any questions on this?
Madam Chair?
Selectman Panetta?
I'd like to discuss the legal services and what is included in what's sitting on here, the $5,000 in the legal services.
Certainly. Actually, that number should have read $50,000, not $5,000. And the reason that I had asked Wendy to put this on here is because the board does not have their own legal representation, so to speak. And I had gone through minutes of previous boards for various reasons to get a sense, being new on the Board of Selectmen, and to learn more about the position. And I came across from January of, it was actually January 25th of 2011, and I put this on the agenda too for a purpose of discussion. Okay. In January of 2011, at their selectmen's meeting, the selectmen's, and Mr. Crabtree, I'm going to need your input on this, the selectmen's FY budget was raised. And the clerk said she was not requesting any changes. Mr. Crabtree said it was brought up in the past, and to track issues, he would like to appropriate some of the legal fees into a line item in the selectmen's budget. The manager said they do track and explained. Mr. Serino agreed with Mr. Crabtree and said he brought this up in the past and would like to see a separate line item in their own budget, and said he thinks it will give the board a better understanding of what's spent on issues and feel the board needs the resources to do their job. The manager said there's $75,000, and if the board would like, he will put $50,000 in the board's budget under general litigation. Mr. Serino said they may not use it, but would rather have it. Mr. Crabtree moved to move $50,000 from legal fees and create a new line item in the selectmen's budget. The chair seconded the motion. Mr. Horlick agreed and said it gives better control and asked it be segregated, and the total amount of the budget to be amended to a total of $90,144. The chair seconds, and the vote was 4-0. If you could give me the background information on that, because it seems like a really good idea to me, having read through it, and obviously you felt so as well, and the board did, but I don't see it reflected anywhere else. What happened with that?
Essentially, when that went through the process, they looked into it, and the manager and town council determined that it wasn't appropriate to have the monies there because of the way the charter is set up. So that ended up, I think, through the finance committee and through the whole process, was taken out and put back to where the.
But it did go through the process for the finance committee?
I believe it may have went there, and I'm not sure what the discussion was there, but that was sort of the background of it.
Because I think it's a great idea, so I'd like to have further discussion on it if we may, and that's why I had requested that it be put into our budget, because I do feel that it would be helpful to us, as the former chairman has stated, to be able to do our jobs. Clearly understanding, because the charter does have that stipulation in there, and I wanted to know if that stipulation was there when this was suggested at the time as well.
Yeah,
So how the
that's-
conversation went and what the process was to be able to achieve your goal.
Yeah, I believe that the conversation had to do with the manager and after the fact and with town council. And we were
Okay.
and actually, I think the moderator at the time called me and said that that wasn't a good idea, and that the charter doesn't allow it.
Okay.
And that was sort of, and they said, well, you know, and it was sort of that type of discussion, and then, you know, I took, you know, what they had to say, and I think,
If you could get me
Yeah.
some more information on that, we still have time before we're doing this because this is a draft budget, but it does seem, like I say, this was back in 2011, so I guess a lot of people think alike on that because I completely agree that it would be a great idea. Okay. Does anybody else have any
Yeah,
questions?
Madam Chair? On the
Selectman
line,
Allen.
thank you. On the line items, we have the 5,300 for the legal services, and then below that, we have the line item 5,300 for professional and technical services. Is that inclusive of the same line item, or is that going to be two separate line items? Right at the bottom.
It probably, it's probably a different number, maybe it's 5,800, it's probably a different line item.
That is different. That is the professional development we talked at the last meeting about, which would include professional development and conferences, correct? And you wanted it to be, you had said it was going to be in each individual budget. We were going to talk about it further, but we haven't gotten to that point yet, and I do understand the town manager has been out straight between the CIP plan, between working on the casino issues as well as the budget, that this draft, as I'm looking at it, is for our discussion purposes, and then to have a discussion with the town manager.
that's
Am I
fine.
correct?
And lucky enough, we have the boss with us today, so we did talk about setting it up a couple of weeks ago, and so we'll, within the next week, I'll get with Wendy and Susan, will set up an appointment.
You're going to set up that appointment?
Yes.
Okay. All right, give me a shout.
All right.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Selectman Panetta.
I think it's an excellent idea that we have a professional and technical service line item because, you know, some of you folks went to the MMA, I've gone in the past, and we didn't have a budget for that. I was thinking that maybe the 5,000 might be, and I'm just throwing this out there because it is a draft budget, maybe it might be a little too high. I think they cost about $150. There's 5 of us, $750. Assume that each person goes twice. That's $1,500. Maybe the chair might want to go to something else. Maybe we can reduce that to $2,000 or $2,500.
It's 3 meetings a year. There is a follow-up in the fall. I have no problem reducing it, if you want to reduce it to the 21, and we can discuss it with the town manager.
Even if we assume we can add another $750 to that, and if we bring it to $2,250, well, again, $2,500. and
I
that
have
would-
no problem with that.
And then that would be, assuming everybody's going to go to, and then there'll be, if you wanted to go to something else, there'd be a little bit
Okay.
extra money in there.
Sure.
I think that's fair.
Everybody
and we
comfortable
could,
with that?
I think we should probably take the time before our meeting with the manager to explore some of the opportunities that are available. I don't think in the past there's then been that ability by Board of Selectmen members to attend some of these really valuable trainings, and I think they're very important. So between the time that we have this evening and when we meet with the manager, we could take a look at some of that information we got at the MMA and see what the costs are, so that we're not...
Absolutely. I mean, if there's, I'm all for education, whether it be educating ourselves or educating the town manager or the employees or my employees. I'm all for education. I think that's really important and it's very relevant. So if there are other opportunities that are out there, I think we should pursue those. I was just trying to think that, you know, what's available, what we know of, and making sure that we have enough money to go for the things, because the better we educate ourselves, the better we're going to be able to provide better service to our constituents.
That's
So,
correct.
Absolutely.
That's correct. Okay, so you have the numbers in front of you, and give it a lot of thought, and then we can have our discussion.
Madam Chairman, one
Selectman
question.
Castanetti.
You said that the legal services one is listed as 5,000, but should be 50, so
It
what do we...
should have said
So that should be 50,000, okay.
That's correct. And again, this was brought up several times in the past, and I just would like to have further clarification as to the processes that took place at that time. Any further discussion? So we'll wait to hear from you within the week, Mr. Manager,
On which issue? I'm sorry.
the draft budget.
Yes. Well, I'm sure we'll have, putting it together and we'll meet next week.
Okay. Thank you. Next is the appointments. We have, for the Affordable Housing Trust Board of Trustees, we have several applicants for this position. I've spoken to our clerk, and you've set up, you've sent invitations for February 10th, is that correct? Is that board comfortable with that, February 10th, doing interviews for that?
What time, Madam Chairman?
Pardon me?
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock. At 15-minute intervals. Thank you. The next appointment that we would have is the Cemetery Commission. The deadline for submitting on this was January 15th, and we do have one applicant, and that is Mr. William Howell, is asking for reappointment for another term on the Cemetery Commission. Is there a motion on this?
Madam Chair, do you feel comfortable enough? We're doing interviews because we have so many folks on the affordable housing. Because he does expire, the date is on 12/13. I don't have a problem making that in the form of a motion this evening, but did you want to interview him as well, or do you feel comfortable because he's just renewing?
I feel comfortable because he's renewing, and quite frankly, we had extended the deadlines
We did.
on these.
We
And
did.
the interest in this position, I'm very grateful that Mr. Howell has put his name forward again to serve in that capacity.
I was hoping that Mr. Nicosia would do the same, so.
I don't know what has happened with Mr. Nicosia. I don't
Right,
know.
no,
I didn't hear.
he's done wonderful service, but I will make that in the form of a motion for Mr. William Howell.
Selectman Panetta moves that we reappoint Mr. William Howell to the Cemetery Commission. These are for 3 years. Is this seconded? Seconded by the chair, excuse me. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Next on appointments, we have the Cultural Council, and again, this was extended. We have a letter here from a Judy Worthley. I've been a Saugus resident for 35 years. She's retired, and she's worked in the healthcare systems for 34 years. She goes on to state that she would like to be able to volunteer her time to her community and would appreciate consideration to the appointment of the Saugus Cultural Council. She believes her experience with all types of community programs will be helpful in assisting. She's been encouraged with the new board and would like to be involved in the positive direction it is going to. This appointment is also for 3 years, and she is the only applicant. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Selectman Panetta?
I will make a motion to appoint for 3 years Ms. Judy Wortley to the Cultural Council.
That is seconded by the chair. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next, we're at citizens' comment period. Is there somebody here that would like to address the board? Seeing none at this time, we'll continue on the continued hearings. Hometown Pizza, that is continued to the chair. Could we have a motion to continue that? That's call the chair.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Seconded by the chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next on our agenda, we have a show cause hearing on Chapman Auto Body. This has been before us. Would you like to speak on this, Ms. Hatch, or would you like us to just read from your communication? Whichever you're comfortable with.
Madam Chairman and board members, As you know, Chapman Auto operates at 16 Hamilton Street with a license that's issued by the Board of Selectmen. That license was up for renewal on January 1st, 2014. I believe the board took action, or no action, to reissue that license at this point due to the fact that there were outstanding taxes that were more than 12 months in arrears on that property. And as the bylaw and Mass General Law provides, is that the taxes either have to be paid up to a point where they're no more than 12 months in arrears, or the property owner needs to be in an approved payment agreement between the town of Saugus collector treasurer, as approved by the Board of Selectmen as a licensing authority, and the property owner. At the time that Chapman Auto originally came before the board, there was no such agreement, and my last recommendation was made to the board early on in January that I felt that the property owner had a responsibility, because of his prior history, to pay what was owed in full, which was approximately $5,000, which would bring his account to a point where it was no more than 12 months in arrears. I believe at your last meeting, you didn't take any action on that recommendation, which was fine. Since that time, the owner has come in and he's made an additional payment of $3,000. So as it stands right now, I have discussed with Mr. Bolivar, who is the owner of 16 Hamilton Street, terms and conditions of a payment plan. We've come to an agreement. He agrees to pay $3,000 a month for the next 7 months. And to just give the board a little insight as to why I decided to change my recommendation and go along with that agreement is his first payment being due on the 15th of February of $3,000 will bring his account to where he is no more than 12 months in arrears. Any additional payments from that point forward on are going to go toward his outstanding FY13 tax lien, but that portion is less than 12 months in arrears according to the date in which it was billed originally. And he has some additional water and sewer charges as well as the 2014 taxes. So based on that, my recommendation to you this evening is to move forward and grant Chapman Auto their license to resume business properly under the bylaws and statutes of Massachusetts. I will say that I haven't had great success with payment plans in the past. I think I've expressed that to previous boards. I have indicated to the chairperson that should Mr. Bolivar not meet the deadline of February 15th for that next payment, which would bring him to that 12-month mark, I will be before the board to notify you of that so that you can take appropriate action to do with, whatever is appropriate with the license that's issued at that address. So if he maintains this payment plan, it will bring him to a point where by the end of next fiscal year, he will have his taxes pretty much caught up to date, and then he'll be able to hopefully stay that way. I know that we like to try and make accommodations where we can, obviously for business owners and residents. We want to work together. So that is my recommendation this evening, solely on the fact that one payment next month will bring him to within 12 months in arrears. And that's what he needs to meet the statute and bylaw. So if you have any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Madam Chairman? Just a note, and I know the owner of Chapman Auto reached out to the treasurer's office as well as my office, and just to make a clarification, I think for the public and whatnot, it's not him that's in the rears of the taxes. He runs a business, and just the way that notice is made, his business is noted as his license being in jeopardy because of the actual owner of the building, the landlord that hasn't, is in the rear of the taxes. So I know that it seemed to, concern him because it's his business and he's not behind in taxes, he's not behind in rent. So I just wanted to note that because he did reach out to my office as well as Wendy's.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. That is important to note because it is his name on it, and that's not fair. Do we need to take 2 votes tonight? Do we need to accept this payment plan, or is this something?
I think it would be appropriate to have that in your minutes, that the board is in agreement and accepts the payment plan as it's been agreed to between the property owner and myself.
Okay. Then there would be 2 motions. The first motion would be to accept the payment plan as agreed upon with the collector treasurer.
I'll make that as a motion.
Selectman Allen moves to accept the payment plan as presented by Mrs. Hatch, seconded by the chair. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0. And I believe the second one would be to renew the license with the conditions that we just discussed, that there'd be adherence to that payment plan. And as Mrs. Hatch has said, she will notify us should that not be complied with.
And I'll make that as a motion also.
Mr. Allen moves that we renew the license for Chapman Auto, the Chapman Auto, with the condition that the payment plan spelled out would be adhered to. Seconded by the chair. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Mrs. Hatch. Next on the agenda, we have a public hearing. It is for Espresso Coffee Cafe to be located at 135 Broadway for a common victualer's license and for permit to extend hours of operation in accordance with Section 810 of the Town of Saugus bylaws by allowing business to be open for operation at 5 a.m. We've received a lot of communication back on this piece of property, and I'm sure all of you folks have been able to read it. Is the petitioner here this evening? If you could come to the podium and give us your name and number, your name and address, rather?
Yes.
See-
What? I'm sorry, what is it?
Good evening, could we have your name and address?
Oh, yes. My name is Arthur Miko, and my home address is 266 Central Street here in Saugus. My business, what I see, is 135 Broadway. I want to open a coffee shop in Saugus. I work too many years in a Square One Mall, and I have a chocolate business, a candy business. Candy business go down, and chocolate go up. And I thinking to do a chocolate and coffee. I looking long time for Route 1 South for a coffee shop. Now I find them. I have a lot of experience in chocolate and coffee. I have business 20 years. That's why I thinking is best time right now in Route 1 to open coffee shop. I have to sell coffee, gelato. Gelato no right now because I don't want, it's too much expensive right now, but later. I have to sell cakes, bakery, like bagels, cakes. And I want to open 5 o'clock in the morning because it's very busy in the morning for coffee, for everything. I saw my paper is coming from you, and I have a plan floor if you want to see it. Oh, sorry. All scenes is right there. Kitchen here. Display case for cakes, full espresso machine.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the board?
Madam Chair?
Selectman Panetta?
I don't really have any questions. I just feel a little uncomfortable because there are so many comments from the Board of Health and our building inspector, and I would feel more comfortable, and I appreciate the plan and you coming here this evening, but I'd feel more comfortable if the inspectors had a chance to take a look at this and take a look at the plans and to address their concerns. So I'm going to ask if maybe we can postpone taking a vote this evening, and maybe you can come back to our next meeting if that's something that the board wants to entertain.
For Board of
Madam Chair?
Health, sink is right there in a floor plan. You don't see it. Where I got yesterday to him, he saw it. He's
Who saw it, sir?
Frank, Board of
Okay.
Health.
What the Selectman Panetta is saying, that the information we have here indicates that some of these issues had not been addressed, and clearly they have been addressed, but we would like to see them notify us of their position at this time. Selectman Deva?
Good evening, sir.
Good
Thank
evening.
you, Madam Chairman.
Good evening.
Are you aware of what it is that you need, sir?
Yes,
Because the information we have before us this evening, obviously, you've brought in a floor plan. They're asking for a site plan regarding parking. They want to know about your ability to meet American with Disability compliance in your restrooms. They want an equipment layout, and they also want a fire safety plan.
yeah, I
And
go,
in order for us to make a decision, we need those recommendations back. So if you would be willing to continue this hearing, it would give you an opportunity to work with the various departments to get what you need so that we can make a decision. Would you be willing to do that?
sure. I can start to work with, to start fixing up my stores. I don't do nothing, just, I did everything. I've signed it, I pay money right now, just, I want to start to work in my business to fix up all my,
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Deva?
If I could, sir, these departments are here to work with you, and I'm sure if you speak with inspectional services tomorrow,
yeah,
they can give you the guidance you need on building and laying out what you need to do.
Okay.
And we're more than willing to work with you as well, but we need that information and you need to work with them.
okay,
So I'm sure if you see them tomorrow, they can set you on the right path, including the fire department, who can help you with your fire safety plan.
yeah, I was in fire department, is stamped today in a floor plan.
Okay, that's on the floor plan, sir, but what Selectman Deva has said is there are other issues, not just the floor plan, that have been raised here. You have issues regarding whether or not there's a monitored fire alarm, are the fire extinguishers in place? You have questions here on sinks and equipment, handicapped bathrooms. There are quite a number of conditions that the officials in the community would like to see you meet before we can make a recommendation. And what the two members of the board are suggesting to you, and it is entirely up to you, is if you would like to see this hearing continued.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay. So that you can get more answers, and the people who will be able to help you can do so.
Okay, thank you so much.
When you're ready, sir, if I could, Madam Chairman, Wendy, you can let Wendy know, and we'll have you back before us with all the information.
Okay, thank you so much.
Madam Chair?
Selectman Panetta?
Yeah, we're going to be meeting at the beginning, our next meeting's the beginning of February, and I'm sure that all of these things you could address. You already said that you spoke with Frank Giacalone from the Board of Health.
Yes.
So as the other members mentioned, I mean, we're here to work with you, and we want to see you proceed, but there were just so many, I mean, every department had something to say that you needed to follow up on. It's not negative, it's just that we just want to make sure that everything is being complied with.
Okay, thank you very much.
Because we're really looking forward to coffee and espresso and chocolate, so it's all good.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chairman,
Is there a
At
motion?
this time, I'd offer a motion to continue to the public hearing.
Selectman Devon moves to continue the public hearing on Expressive Chocolate Cafe, seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is Stephen Longmuir of 141 Broadway for modification of an S2 permit voted on September 3rd, 1996, to operate a car rental business by allowing a car rental business and to allow an auto drainage estimating business and auto damage estimating business and for modification of hours of operation. You here to represent?
Yes, Madam Chair Lady.
Good evening.
For the record, Attorney Richard Bagnon with an office at 194 Central Street, Saugus, representing the applicant, Mr. Stephen Longmuir, who is also present here this evening. Mr. Longmuir recently purchased this property at 141 Broadway. He's made extensive renovations to the building, as you probably have seen if you traveled past that on Route 1 South. This request is for a modification of an existing S2 permit, which allows a car rental business, and which use would be continued under the proposal. The prior car rental business was Enterprise, and it would again be Enterprise. The modification requests the added use of a drive-in appraisal of minor auto damages for estimates to vehicles that would drive in, have estimates made of the damages, and then would leave. There would be no auto repairs on the site. Similar businesses are located in the area in Beverly, Danvers, and you might have seen the one on 114 across from the Outback. It's a similar type of operation. The parking plan submitted indicated 19 parking spaces. The existing special permit allowed a maximum of 15 vehicles on the lot at one time, which would be for the use of the car rental business. And if needed, the applicant would request that he be allowed also to store, to allow to be parked on occasion overnight, up to 3 vehicles. I noted that was one of the questions from the building inspector. The petition also requests a modification of the hours. The present hours under the existing S2 permit would be Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, Saturday, 9 to noon. The modification of hours would ask for an increase from of Monday to Friday, 7 to 7, Saturday, 9 to 6, Sunday, 11 to 5. As I said, the department comments, which I reviewed, indicated no objections from most of the departments. Obviously, we would have to meet the fire department conditions and comments. The building inspector's comments, first are 3 that I note. The first 2 seem to be questions. Would there be vehicles parked for this particular use on the property? And the applicant indicated he would like to be able to put 3 cars there for the purposes of any need of leaving one overnight. Will there be a tow truck there? On occasion, he would like to have a tow truck there, so that question would be answered with a yes. The third comment talks about the signage. I know for the record that the applicant has already been before the Zoning Board of Appeals and had all his signing variances and special permits approved. I think the building inspector's comments speaks to the issue of advertising a business not operating on the lot, and as we know, that's not allowed, and that would not be the intent of the applicant, and I'm sure the building inspector wouldn't allow him to do that anyway, so I believe that would address his comments. I do have a handout with the permission of the chair, a letter of recommendation, if I might. I have 6 copies, 5 for the board and 1 for the...
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would not read the entire letter into the record, but summarize it. It is from a letter of recommendation from the mayor of Melrose. And in part, he states that Mr. Longmuir's reputation in the community in Melrose is beyond reproach. This is where he has his operating business. He's hardworking. He understands the responsibility for businesses to participate and partner with the community. For the past several years, he's been involved in sponsor of a walk against domestic violence. He also contributes to the youth activities, has been, obviously, as you can see from the content of the letter, an outstanding citizen in that community. He says, in ending, he says, please accept my highest recommendation for Mr. Longmuir's application to do business in your community. I'm sure you will be proud to have such an honorable businessman working in your community as I am having him part of ours. And as I said, I think that's a pretty good endorsement from the mayor of Melrose.
Thank you.
With that, I would defer to questions of the board, from the board to myself or Mr. Longmuir.
Madam Chair?
Selectman Allen?
Quick question. Looking at the original permit, it had parking spaces close to Spring Street are not to be used from the police department's report.
I did see that. That was the 1996 permit. I spoke to Sergeant von Steensberg if he had any particular comments about this, and he did not necessarily have any. I can't speak to why that condition was inserted at that time, so I think it was based upon a police report that was submitted, or comments from the police department that were submitted at that time.
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Dever?
Good evening. We very much need a car rental operation here in Saugus. I know that we currently don't have one. But in speaking to Spring Street, I just asked the applicant to be sensitive that there is a residential neighborhood in that area. And I really only have one question, and that is the storage of a tow truck. Why would we need a tow truck if it's a drive-in appraisal and we've got a rental business as well?
I would ask Mr. Longmuir to address that, as he would be much
That's my
more
only
familiar with that
question.
than myself.
Thanks.
What it is, the liability, my name's Steve Lamia. I live at 121 Hill Street in Topsfield, Mass. And the answer to the question is, the liability, if you drop your car off to get repaired, I'd be transferring it to Melrose, to the auto body. Liability, I'd have to tow it instead of driving it, for the liability of insurance.
Understood. So the repairs won't happen on
There
your
won't be
property, they would be sent?
Exactly. There's
Okay.
no repairs there
Thank
at
you
all.
for answering my
you.
question.
Any further questions from members of the board?
Madam Chair,
Selectman Panetta?
I just want to try to understand, how many cars are you going to have there? I thought you said there were originally 15, and now they're going to be 19?
No, there would be no more than a total combined of the two uses of 15.
Of the
I think we'd stick
15.
with that, what the original 96 permit had. There are 19 spaces shown, but there would never be more than 15 cars on that lot.
Okay, so there'll be 15 cars, maybe a tow truck every now and then a possibility of 3 other cars being stored there.
As part of, that would be included in the 15, so.
That would be included in the 15.
Right, we're not asking for more than the original permit allowed.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? With the wishes of the board?
It's a public hearing. Would
It's-
anyone like to
Thank you
speak?
so much. Get the hang of it. This is a public hearing. Would anybody in the audience like to speak in favor or in opposition? Seeing none, is the wishes of the board.
Madam Chairman,
Selectman Dever?
I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
Selectman Dever moves to close the public hearing, seconded by the chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Madam Chairman,
Selectman Dever?
I would make a motion to grant the application of Stephen Longmuir for a modification of the special permit S2, voted on 9/3 of 1996, to operate a car rental business by allowing a car rental business and to allow an auto damage estimating business, and for modification of hours of operation.
Seconded by the chair.
Madam Chair, may I also add to that, that there continues to be no auto repair on site, and that they must comply with the fire department's recommendations.
Absolutely. Thank you. Further discussion? If
You
not,
want to
this-
identify the hours for the modification? Monday through Friday, 7 to 7. Saturday, 9 to 6, and Sunday, 11 to 5, and no more than 15 cars total.
Thank you. You have all that, Wendy?
And we can, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, and we can strike the parking near Spring Street, so we could actually remove that from the original permit.
Okay.
Madam Chairman,
Selectman Deva?
I would feel more comfortable. The neighbors on Spring Street have had a little bit of a rough go with development in that area, and being sensitive to the fact that there are residential homes in close proximity, I would wonder if you would consider rethinking that, just to avoid any problems down the road, which we know that they have had. I would ask the board to consider that.
Madam Chairman, according to the site plan, there are enough parking spaces to not use the ones on Spring Street, and I think I'd be inclined to support Selectman Dever's recommendation.
I'd be more than happy to withdraw that.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? This does involve the S2 permit, which is 4/5 vote, so Mrs. Reed, would you call the roll?
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Castanetti?
Yes.
Ms. Dever?
Yes.
Panetta?
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good night. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck, sir. Next on the agenda, we had a public hearing scheduled for National Grid for installation of a conduit from pole 67. There has been a request, a petition to withdraw without prejudice. The motion to grant petitioner leave to withdraw without prejudice, excuse me. Would a member like to make that motion?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Selectman Castanetti moves that National Grid be allowed to take leave and withdraw without prejudice. Seconded by the chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Elm Street Bridge. Mr. Manager.
I don't think there's any update other than what we had before.
Okay, at our last meeting, Mr. Manager, you seemed pretty concerned that this issue needed to be addressed sooner than later. And we have received communication from CDM in regards to this. There's been many questions raised, and this issue is, it's been here for a while. I'm going to open this up to members of the board and see if anybody else has any comments on this.
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Deva.
Heeding the request by the town manager and the representatives from CDM to make a decision.
Correct.
And based on all of the information that we have been presented, I am prepared to make a decision tonight on this. And as difficult as it is, and as much as I would like to be able to accept a FEMA grant, there are a number of reasons that I can't support the application at this time. I'm unable to support or accept this grant funding. The current plan as proposed lacks the following information. It lacks a hydrological study to identify any potential impacts to properties downstream from the Elm Street Bridge, including the Hamilton and Boston Street bridges. We have a Massachusetts Department of Highway Division of National Bridge Inspection Report received by the town on 12/27 regarding the Hamilton Street and Boston Street Saugus River bridges. This report alerts the community to hairline cracks along with noted erosion beyond the bridges and reports that any repair, rehab, or reconstruction of any bridge to address deficiencies reported is the owner or custodian's responsibility. Removal of the Elm Street Bridge may actually exacerbate that situation. We lack a traffic study to identify the impact to surrounding neighborhoods, including but not limited to road reconfiguration. We lack pedestrian and public transit rerouting. We lack a drainage study and a plan for a drainage system upgrade. We lack a plan for relocation of public utilities that may include water, sewer, gas, and electric lines. We now know that this bridge, the Elm Street Bridge, has a historical status attached to it. This information was discussed at the Saugus Planning Board on January 16th by Mr. Stephen Carlson, the chairman of the Saugus Historical Commission, and a lack of documentation as to the role that the state would play in any removal of this historic bridge. And finally, this is a mitigation project that may lessen the impact of flooding in the Elm Street region, but there's no guarantee that elimination of flooding will occur with the plan presented to the board. And based on the plan that was presented, we may simply relocate flood dangers to another section of the community. Knowing that this has been before 3 boards of selectmen and a decision has not been made, now the grant money is available, we still don't have a complete and comprehensive plan. I don't feel comfortable accepting this money with the information and the plan we've been presented. So tonight I cannot support it. And I do feel, in fairness to other communities that may be waiting for this money, we should make a decision.
Thank
you.
Selectman Dever. I think that what we need before we have further discussion on this, we can discuss it, but we need a motion. Is there going to be a motion? I believe you suggested a motion at our last meeting, correct?
That's correct. I believe if the board does not want to accept the grant money and move forward with that project, that you would need to make a vote, or the appropriate vote would be a vote to withdraw the FEMA application from consideration. and to
Madam
notify.
Chairman, I'd like to make that motion this evening to withdraw.
Selectman Dever moves to withdraw the application for the FEMA grant for the Elm Street Bridge project, seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion?
Madam Chairman,
Selectman Castanetti.
this has been a tough decision. I really feel badly for the people on Seville Street and the flooding issues, but I was pretty unhappy with the presentation we got due to the incompleteness of the information that was presented to us a couple of meetings ago. I mean, my main concern is to try to eliminate the flooding for the folks that see it on the big storms. And when I asked that question, would this solve the problem, it was pretty obviously painful that it would mitigate it. Mitigate can mean a whole variety of things. And I can't see subjecting the town to this expense. No, it's not a 100% grant. We're going to still pay money for it. I can't see subjecting the town to that expense if, in fact, we're going to be in the same position after the removal of the bridge as we were before the bridge is removed. And that could very well happen. And again, relocating the problem downstream is not the answer either. I hate to say no to free money, but I too feel that we don't have the information we need to make that decision, and I will support the withdrawal of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Castanetti. Further discussion from members of the board.
Madam Chair,
Selectman Panetta.
I really wish we were able to use this money for even what they did at Chute Brook. And there could have been alternative measures that we could take. I mean, I think this whole board really empathizes with that whole area. I mean, it's down the street from where I live, and I see the flooding. But it was clear when we had the presentation that it wasn't going to solve the issue that we had in hand. It was probably going to take that issue and move it further down, maybe on Hamilton Street, where they have a lot of flooding there. And it hurts to give the money. I don't like to give away a dime, never mind give away that type of money. But Selectman Castanetti made a good point. I mean, this isn't free. I mean, it's still going to cost the town significant hundreds of thousands of dollars on top of the grant for something that clearly people don't feel comfortable with. So it's a shame. I guess that's I just wish we had more and we could do something like we did with Shoebrook. I think that was a really innovative way to solve that issue. So we just need to move forward.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm in support with Selectman Dever, because after reading these reports from the Mass DOT and then also seeing that, I mean, there's going downriver when you get down to the Hamilton Street Bridge, it's already shown that it has little riprap. It's causing embankment erosion on the southwest corner. So there's a lot of issues going downriver that I think needs to be looked at before we go forward with this.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. I agree with all of you. I also think that when we had the presentation, there were so many questions, but the more questions that were answered, the more questions that were raised. And I don't feel that we could, it's very sad that the people that have the homes that are having the issues, this isn't a guarantee, as you said, that this is going to alleviate the situation whatsoever. So I support withdrawing the application at this time. Any further discussion?
Madam Chairman, one other comment I'd like to make.
Certainly.
I've spoken to contractors and folks that do this type of work for a living, and they said it, in several cases, very clearly other options without removing that bridge. It'll help lessen the impact of the excess water coming down that river without going to the expense, anywhere near the expense that we would have to come up with for this move. So I think we need more information, and I think the information is readily available, and we need to go out and ask for it if we want to do something about that area.
You make a very good point, Mr. Castaneda. I want it clear to the people that have come before the board and voiced their concerns from many angles, that if the board determines tonight by vote to withdraw the application, it does not mean that the problem no longer is not before us and in the forefront of our mind. We do want to make certain that the help that can be provided to the folks down there is, but we need to find out the options. We just don't have the information to be able to comfortably do it in the approach that we have been proposed with. Is there further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of Selectman Dever's motion to withdraw the application for the FEMA MEMR grant, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the SCTV, SCTS issue. As all of you know, the community voted to request that the current Saugus cable television station convert back to SCTV. And what I've done is I had reached out to the attorney who handled this initially, and I'm going to read his response. I have reviewed the vote of the Board of Selectmen setting the new policies for the Saugus cable television station. I have also reviewed the bylaws of the nonprofit Saugus Community Television, Inc. I would recommend the following steps in order to reactivate the nonprofit corporation. Number one, the Board of Selectmen must vote to rescind the policy and bylaw previously voted. This policy was not a bylaw in the true sense of the word. It can therefore be changed or eliminated in its entirety by a further vote of the current board. If there are portions of the policy that the current board wishes to retain, it may do so. Such portions, if you do wish to retain them, however, must not be inconsistent with the bylaws of the nonprofit. If there are specific questions that the board has, please let me know. He's also stating that the current board of directors of the nonprofit must vote to rescind the prior vote of the board to dissolve the nonprofit. While the nonprofit board did vote to dissolve, the process of the dissolving was not completed. Accordingly, the nonprofit may resume its activities by voting formally to rescind the decision to dissolve. The board, under its current bylaws, may continue in office until successors are named. The board of the nonprofit will have to ensure that regular functions such as completion of the audit, filing of returns and annual reports, and the like are accomplished. Some deadlines for these acts may have passed, however, none of the tardiness should impact the ultimate viability of the nonprofit. The Board of Selectmen and the Board of the nonprofit will need to negotiate a new agreement for the operation of the station. The prior agreement expired, and the prior Board of Selectmen decided not to renew it. In terms of timing, it does not matter, in his opinion, whether the Board of Selectmen act before the Board of the nonprofit or vice versa. Whichever board acts first, its vote should be contingent upon the other board acting in conformity with the vote. In other words, if the Board of Selectmen votes first, it should vote to rescind the prior policy subject to the Board of Directors of the nonprofit voting to rescind its prior vote to dissolve. If the Board of Directors votes to rescind the vote prior to dissolve first, that vote likewise should be contingent upon the Board of Selectmen voting to rescind the prior policy vote. This, I believe, Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong, this was in July, do you have the exact date there?
July 18th.
July 18th of
2012.
2012. So this is what we have for information. We have discussed this. We have promised people who have worked very hard on this that we would address this. And I'm opening it up to the board for comments.
Madam Chair?
Selectman Panetta?
I'm going to make a suggestion. I won't even make it in the form of a motion. I'm just going to make a suggestion at this time. We got a lot of input. I mean, clearly there was the non-binding vote, and we got the opinion from the attorney. And I would really like to have a public hearing to talk more about this, how we're going to change, because we haven't really talked as a board about what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep. I don't want to just take a vote right now and to rescind it, because to rescind it to what? I think I'd like to really talk about what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep before we do anything. So I would like to, I'm suggesting having a public hearing.
Any other comments?
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Dever?
When the change was created by the previous board, I don't recall a public hearing. I do believe that we need an opportunity to look at both sets of bylaws and determine what is in the best interest of the community. But I also believe that the voters spoke very loud and very clear in their desire, as they did when they elected all of us. I do agree we absolutely need an opportunity to do the very best we can by Saugus Community Television and by way of the residents. So I'm not particularly driven to have a public hearing. I am driven to do what is in the best interest of the community by having a set of bylaws that are very much in the best interest of the community. So if it is the recommendation of the council, Attorney Zalesnik, who assisted the previous board, that a vote is needed to rescind, then I feel that is the first step as we begin this process to try and make Saugus Cable Television the best that it can be, and to put the past behind us. So I do have to listen to council, that you have taken the opportunity to get advice from, the same council who assisted the previous board in making the changes. And I do believe it's a good first step. As he has said, they would continue in office. They would continue to function, and between the information that we have and the past history that we have, I think this board can make the best decisions for the community. So I do feel comfortable listening to council as well as listening to the voters.
Madam Chair?
Selectman Panetta?
Thank you. The prior board, we had many people come before us, including
I'm sorry.
the prior selectmen board had many people come before us, this is before it was changed, which was the whole reason that the change took place, and we had lots of public comment. And the older board voted unanimously to make the change. In fact, Selectman Dever, you were one of the people that realized at that point you came before the board. I appreciate your words, and I appreciate the vote. I still think, for me, a public hearing, I think it would help us draft the new policy, and for me, it would kind of put the dotting the i's, crossing the t's, it would pull it all together for me, so I could better, not only just have the vote, but also listen to what they like and what they don't like within the policy itself. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Dever.
I appreciate Selectman Panetta's comments, and you're right, I did come forward. The previous Saugus Community Television had some issues around community standards, and I think we all know that. But you can go from one extreme to the other. And so I think we need to create and take the very best of both.
I agree.
And I'm very comfortable with council's advice as a first step.
Madam
I
Chairman.
think the voters have spoken, just like they put their faith and trust in us. And I'm very comfortable and willing to do the hard work to take the best of both. And that's my strong feeling. I am very strong in listening to council and council's advice.
Selectman Castanetti.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You know, we may have had people come to us to discuss this when we made this decision back in 2012. We just had almost 5,000 people come in front of us, 87% of whom voted to make the change back to the original format. I don't think you could get much of a better public hearing than the referendum on the ballot in November, and I too would support the attorney's decision and his recommendations to bring this back to the old format without a public hearing.
Madam Chairman, I know I've spoken a lot on this, but one of the benefits I feel is that we can have an even better Saugus Community Television from what we've learned in the past and moving forward. And one of the things that has deeply troubled me in the changes that we've seen in its current form is something as simple as not being allowed to award scholarships to Saugus students. That was something that was always done under the previous board. That was a real loss to this community. So I think we take the very best of both and strive for the best. And I just feel very strongly about it. I think we've had a lot on our plates, but this has never lost its priority or its importance.
Madam Chair,
Selectman Allen.
I believe in order for us to move forward, we're going to have to rescind it to be able to move forward, but I'll also agree with Selectman Panetta that we should have a public hearing just to get the ideas and get the input of the public. But I think in order for us to move forward, we're going to have to rescind it because I believe that's my interpretation of what the attorney said. In order for us to make the change, we have to rescind it first, and then we can move forward.
Correct. This board would have to, it doesn't matter which board goes first, so to speak, but each board's vote would be contingent on the other board also rescinding their vote. And he did make that quite clear. What I would suggest is, it seems like everybody's in agreement. It's just everyone's saying things perhaps in a different way, because we have both sets of the bylaws. We have both SCTV as well as SCTS. If there is a vote taken to rescind the vote from July of 2012, that information would be forwarded by our clerk to the board of SCTS to take their action as they will. Is it within reason to state that to meet the requests of all the members, all of us go through these books again, pick out what you would like to see, draft something that you would like to see, and then present it to the public, give a short window we could meet on it. This is what we all feel would work in the best interest, the best of both worlds. leave it in locations where people can peruse it and then adopt it? Would that be something that you'd be comfortable with? Because I do agree with Mr. Castanetti, and I agree with what everybody has said tonight. You had 5,000 people tell us that they wanted this change to take place. Can you get people to come to a public hearing and speak about it? Absolutely, absolutely. This is a very, very emotional issue for a lot of people, and people are depending on us to make the changes that they voted for. You can take the vote to rescind and then make the changes to the bylaws in conjunction with the parties. Is that something that you'd be comfortable with as a board?
I would be comfortable with it, Madam Chairman. Again, I would take
Mr.
advice of counsel.
Mrs. Panetta?
Not really, no.
Okay. Mr. Castanetti?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Do we have a motion here?
Madam Chairman, we'll make a motion per special counsel
Yep.
to rescind the vote of the previous Board of Selectmen voted on July 18th, 2012, in the creation of Saugus Community Television Station.
And you are making this motion to rescind the vote, and it is contingent upon...
I'm sorry, and it is contingent on the same vote being taken by the Board of Directors of the Saugus Cable Television Station.
And that action does not preclude any further action that may be taken pertaining to this. So, the motion is seconded. Is there further discussion? This is only to rescind the vote from the July 2012 meeting.
I think it's,
Seeing none?
if you don't mind, Madam Chairman, I think the Saugus Cable vote is they have to rescind their motion to disband the nonprofit,
Correct.
not this.
No,
not
they,
the
no, no, no.
bylaws.
They need to,
Just to clear
we
that up.
need to rescind the vote of the Board of Selectmen, and then they need to rescind their vote that would have dissolved the 501c3. What they had done, for those of you that aren't aware, what they had done was they had petitioned to dissolve the 501c3, but they never followed through with the process in doing that. So it essentially, they need to take that back. They need to rescind the vote to dissolve it because there was no follow-through on that action in the first place. So to start the ball rolling on the wishes of the community, the motion here is to rescind the vote. It has been seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion?
Madam Chair, and I just,
Alan?
I'm not sure if this would be the right protocol, but if SCT does follow suit, that we do schedule a public hearing to get the input of everybody on how they want to see everything going forward.
Okay. Fair enough.
We're going to make that part of the same motion. And I'll tell you why I asked that, because I agree with part of it, not the other part. How do I vote?
Madam Chairman, if I could recommend that we take two separate votes. Again, this is a starting point towards a better and improved SCTV, and I think it's a step-by-step process. So if Selectman Allen would not object if we could make it in two separate motions, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of rescinding the vote of the previous board from July 18th of 2012, will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain,
Abstain.
for
Motion-
given reasons. For given reasons.
Motion passes 4, 1 abstention. You going to have a second motion? No? Okay. Okay, moving along. In new business, the safe...
I do, I'm sorry.
you do have another
Yeah,
motion,
So
okay.
I do want to just put the motion out there, providing that SCTV does follow through, that somewhere down the road, once they come through, that we do have a public hearing just to get some input.
Okay, your motion is going to be that upon SCTV rescinding their vote to dissolve the 501c3, that the Board of Selectmen schedule a public hearing regarding the bylaws
Get the input.
of the station, correct?
Correct.
Seconded by the chair. Further discussion? All those in favor of
Aye.
Selectman Allen's motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. Next on the agenda, under new business, is the SAFER grant. Mr. Manager, want to explain the SAFER grant for me, so the public knows? Thank you.
The,
Nothing in there.
So, okay.
as the board may be aware, I'm sure everybody is aware, that the town was fortunate enough to receive a SAFER grant from FEMA, which is a staffing for adequate fire and emergency response. It's a grant that's awarded through the federal government, and the grant was for 8 firefighters, and that pays for their salary and benefits for 2 years. And also, there's an option on a first-come, first-served basis, if there are veterans that are hired, that you can apply for a third year. And so that gives, obviously a larger opportunity for the town. In bringing on the 8 men, that will allow us to adequately staff the third apparatus that's located at the Essex Street Fire Station. Will secure us in that station and apparatus from being in jeopardy of closing. So this is a huge safety, not only for the firefighters, but also for the public, and adhering to towards the NFPA, the National Firefighters, their requirements for adequate staffing.
The grant is for 3 years.
It's a 2-year
Yes.
grant, and then there's an option on a first-come, first-served basis. And one of the things we have already started is the call for the list, and we're in the process of moving forward with hiring as soon as possible, so that if we have some veterans that are adequate and people that we want to hire, that we can get that request in to have them see if they would pick up the benefits and salary for a third year. So there is an option for a third year, but it's on a first-come, first-served basis, and they would have to be veterans.
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Castanetti.
Mr. Manager, what happens at the end of this period, the 2 years or 3 years? How do we continue? Are we going to continue this? Is that your intention? And how do we fund it if it is?
Well, I think two things. One is that, as you know from, and I think you supported this when I was on the board and continued as a manager, is that public safety is certainly a priority. And one of the things I think that's clear is that we don't have enough firefighters staffed as well as police, and little by little we've been increasing that over the last couple of years. And the intent would be to try to maintain those levels. Essentially, that would bring those levels up to 12 on 4 shifts. And right now, when I, back in 2012, when I first took over, we were at a point where they had 8 on, I think, 3 of the shifts and a 9-man shift. So, and if you look at it in terms of apparatus, we have 3 apparatus and 2 stations. Each apparatus is filled, is manned by 3 men. And actually, under the National Fire guidelines, they should be manned by 4, with 4 men on each apparatus. So this is going to bring us up to a complement of 12 on 4 shifts, so that we'd be able to do that. Obviously, there's vacation and holidays and sick calls that happen. So the intent would be to try to maintain that. There's obviously going to be some cost savings with some of the overtime, which probably is the most popular with the firefighters. But that's, I think those savings and that money can be used or put towards maintaining those levels. And that would be the intent, to try to maintain those levels, because I think that is why we were given the grant. for the 2 years, and possibly third year is to be able to, we're not unlike other communities where I think we're struggling, as most communities are, to maintain services, and it's a sort of a diminishing, thing, and that's why, I think that's part of, I think, coming to what we need, what we feel is safe for the public as well as the firefighters, and maintaining that budget-wise and prioritizing the budget to do that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled to death we got it for at least the 2 years. I'd feel real comfortable knowing that this is going to be a long-term association rather than just a short-term grant.
I think part of it is, I think we are moving in the right direction as far as stabilizing the finances and budgeting within our means, as far as, passing the balanced budgets rather than budgets with the structural deficits. And part of that is when you start seeing where you can make savings and costs and whatnot, and then you're prioritizing the budgets. That's where you start looking at, how to do that and a plan moving forward with that. So, would be the intent, is to maintain. I always feel that we don't have enough firefighters, we don't have enough police officers, to adequately service the town. And I think we are getting there, and we're starting to rebuild. We went through a lot of years of, I think, people retiring and just deciding not to replace them in the budget, and reducing the budget, actually increased because of other fixed costs, but decreased in the sense of the manpower and budgeted items for salary to maintain that. So that would, that would be the intent to move forward. That's correct.
Madam Chair?
Second for that.
Thank you.
I just, I'm sorry, I just want to add one more thing. I guess just to give the history of this so that people understand, this is a grant, actually, Melrose had applied for this. They got this, I think, 2 years in a row. A couple of years back, they had got 4 fighters and 4 firefighters. We did apply for this the previous year. We were unsuccessful, but, I think we were fortunate enough to keep pushing and try to reapply for that this year, and we were successful in getting that. So a lot of people that put a lot of time into doing that, putting that together, the former fire chief as well as the new fire chief, Chief McQuaid, as well as everybody, the staff, and all the calls we made to try to see this through. So that there's a lot of effort that went through putting this through, and they should be recognized.
Thank you, Selectman Pinell.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you answered my question. I think it's wonderful, obviously, for the sport safety is one of our top priorities. So putting 8 more firefighters in Saugus, obviously, is a wonderful thing. So it's for 2, maybe 3 years, so are we going to be able to reapply? And again, congratulations to you and Chief McQuaid and everybody else who was involved with getting this grant.
Yeah, the plan would be to prioritize, to make sure that we have the adequate staffing, and I believe that this brings us up to have adequate staffing. So we would be moving forward that. I think part of the overall priorities for the town itself, and I know everybody feels this way, is we're certainly spending a lot of time in looking for opportunities for the town to benefit, and part of that is looking for grants that can benefit the town, at least to get us a start. Because there is some savings, obviously, with overtime, and if you allocate those monies towards the extra manpower, that's a good use of those monies to be able to secure and move forward into the future to maintain that staffing.
Forgive me, did you ask, is this a renewable grant?
That was my question.
That's what I thought it was. Is this particular grant renewable? I believe that's
You
what,
can reapply for the grant, that's correct.
Okay.
I think that, obviously, that it's not Melrose did apply 2 years in a row, and they were granted 4 firefighters each year. So part of the formula of putting the grant together is to have adequate staffing, which is based on national fire standards.
Right.
And this staffing, the 8, brings us to being in compliance of how many firefighters you need on a critical incident in a working fire. So that you could reapply once it went out, but I'm sure there would be a gap, and you may not. It's very competitive. This year, I think we were one of 2 communities under this round that were awarded the grant in Massachusetts. So it's not, you can reapply, so you're not excluded from reapplying, but, you know, whether that happens is another.
What's the likelihood it is renewable if we had two communities in one Commonwealth receive the funding? But you did say Melrose
2
was
years in a row,
successful
yeah.
2 years in a row. And how long has this grant been available?
This grant goes back, I think, to the 70s.
To the 70s,
So we
okay.
just, Saugus just, you know, for whatever reasons, I think only applied for it once and
Are you
unsuccessfully about
familiar,
eight years
then,
ago.
I don't know if this could be a question that you just wouldn't have the ability to answer it. Has there, historically, if this grant has been available, what is the likelihood that communities have had multiple funding over the years through the grant processes?
I don't know that,
Yeah.
but I think part of it is that the grants always change.
Okay.
And I guess in one way, as a positive and what makes this grant attractive the last 2 years is the parameters of it is that there's no obligation to maintain that staffing after the grant runs out from their standpoint, whereas we have some COPS grants for the police that we have, you know, once you accept those, you're obligated to maintain certain staffing and certain levels, and if somebody retires, to maintain that. This grant doesn't carry that, which is, I guess, good and bad, but our intent would be to maintain the staffing levels.
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Deva?
If I could just ask the manager just a couple of questions. Obviously, 8 additional firefighters is long overdue, but will we be having any retirements in the fire department this year that might negate 8 new firefighters?
We have one planned retirement, and we're actually in the process of hiring 9, you know, the 8 plus 1 for the replacement.
That's a little bit reassuring. And the other question I had is, since we were fortunate enough to receive this grant, as you said, through the hard work of the fire department and the previous fire chief and the current fire chief and yourself, has any thought been given to hiring a grant writer, as other communities have and have been successful? I know, you know, it would be an expense to the budget, but it may certainly benefit the community in the long run.
Well, and there is, you know, obviously that's always an idea, and part of, as we talked about when we brought on the economic development coordinator slash grant writer, you know, part of that when we interviewed and looked at the applicants is, you know, one of the reasons is sort of a trade-off because a grant writer is not always a planner. And, you know, a planner sometimes can do grant writing work. We were fortunate enough, I think, for Saugus, is that the economic development coordinator that we brought on board has a strong background in planning, but also does grant writing in the sense of you know, different opportunities with the MAPC and whatnot. But it's something certainly to consider. In the case of the fire grant, we did hire a consultant the last 2 years that assisted in putting the grant together. And the cost with putting the, you know, hiring the consultant, you know, far outweighed if we had hired somebody full-time. And when I talked to other managers and mayors and other communities, they seem to be moving more in a direction to hire outside sort of consultants that are able to assess the community with different data and then assess and give the availability of what fits in for what your community stats are as far as what's available out there. Somewhat like lobbyists, it's quite a business, you know, they sort of help put it together and they lobby it, whether it's federal or state. And that seems to be more of where the communities are going towards rather than taking on an employee that strictly does grant writing, because there's so many different facets from each department, whether it's the schools, police, fire, you know, parks and playgrounds and whatnot, that it is hard to be disciplined in all of that. So. But it's something we've, you know, I've been tossing around since I was on the board, as far as this.
If I might.
Sure.
I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Manager, about cost, and possibly hiring outside consultants is more cost-effective, but I really like to see the residents of Saugus have input. So it's important to have people who can run our data and create our templates, but in the long run, it needs to be the Saugus residents that are involved. So that's why I asked, and you know, the thought also being creative is to share a grant writer with another community in the form of regionalization. But if grant funding is out there and we have been successful, it's a pattern I think we'd all like to see continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is SurveyMonkey and the National Citizen Survey. This is a discussion. I'm going to actually recognize Selectman Allen, even though he hasn't asked to be recognized, but I thought I heard him say that earlier, so Selectman Allen.
No, well, my thoughts by putting out surveys is for us to kind of get a pulse of what people are thinking. And to me, I think it would be a great way to, because there's a lot of folks that don't have the opportunity or nor want to get up in front of us and tell us their ideas or talk to us. So I think if we came up with a survey where people can do it with, if they don't want to be known, they don't have to be known. If they want to be known, they can be known. And it would give us an opportunity to put our feelers out there and see what the responses are. And then we can actually react by what the needs of the public is or are.
Are you talking topic specific on these?
I mean, I guess it would be, I mean, we could be pretty flexible with it. Ideas would be, as we got into, like, for instance, what Selectman Dever said is about having the public involved. If when we get involved with the economic development, we get involved with the capital improvement plan, we can get their input. Okay, so if we had this much money to spend, or we had to prioritize what was most important to you as a citizen, we could get those responses back.
Okay. Any comments from the other board members?
I'll just make one comment, Madam Chair.
Nada.
When I was on the Charter Commission, I headed up the subcommittee for surveys. And what I did was I went to all the different organizations within town, and we came up, just as Selectman Allen was discussing, certain questions, and we got them all back because we wanted to understand what people were thinking about the town and the government and the changes. We just need to be really careful with what the questions are that we're asking. I mean, we don't want them to be too open-ended or too closed. So whatever we decide, we just have to figure out what those, I mean, maybe we all could come back with ideas and we can have an open discussion on what those questions actually should be.
Sure.
Thank you.
So it gives you some food for thought. Selectman Dever.
I'd just like to commend Selectman Allen and Selectman Panetta, who has got another opportunity to talk about surveying our residents. I think it's a great opportunity to collaborate, to be cooperative, and following up on Selectman Allen, for a long time, people have been afraid to come forward for various reasons, not comfortable, feeling like what they had to say wasn't important, and that has changed. And so as we get this help from the Collins Center, creating templates and gathering data and making plans for the future, this is a perfect opportunity for people to have some input. I know prior to the campaign, many people, many people, and I think the manager and I at a meeting spoke about this, really had concerns about their parks and playgrounds. And so I'm sure they would be able to give great input on a SurveyMonkey. We know it's only 100 questions, but it's a starting point. And I think collaboratively, we could come up with those questions. We could arrange it through our IT department or through, the website that we've talked about. It's a way of getting people engaged in their community and feeling like what they have to say is important. So I commend both of you, and I'm looking forward to working on surveys and getting public input.
Thank you. I
Madam
couldn't
Chairman.
agree more. I think that just the opportunity for to reach out to the public and to hear their opinions on various topics is very, very important. Selectman Castaneda, did I interrupt you? I apologize.
That's okay, I interrupted you, I think, but
You did.
I just want to say Selectman Panetta is 100% correct. Crafting those surveys is critical to getting the type of information you're looking for. And another important part is making sure that we get responses from a wide variety of folks from town rather than 5 or 6 people putting 300 survey responses in each. So you have to be very, very careful about what goes out and how it comes back.
You're absolutely right. So that's going to be some food for thought, and we'll discuss this at a future meeting.
I think anything we do, Madam Chairman, is going to take some work.
Absolutely.
Some hard work. And I think we're all willing to do that work, to engage the public and have them feel comfortable and have them be part of the community. I look forward to working on it. I think it's exciting.
Very good. Thank you all. Managers report. Mr. Crabtree.
Just an update on some of the casino issues that are going on. I think food for thought, because that's sort of a fast-moving, fast-paced process that we're in. The town petitioned, I know the selectmen and myself have been involved in meeting and dealing with these issues, and trying to identify the impacts that Saugus will face if either casino goes into Everett or Revere. And I think, having a fiduciary duty and also having concerns over the quality of life impacts in Saugus, and trying to identify those impacts and put a mitigation cost to that is certainly a paramount priority for us. With that said, just to sort of update is that the town petitioned both Mohegan Sun as well as the Wynn Casino in Everett for surrounding community designation status under the regulation in the statute. We were fortunate enough through different meetings to have the Mohegan Sun and Revere accept us as a designation through the Gaming Commission. The town assented to that, so once that happens, you have, under the regulations, you have 30 days to work on an agreement, in which we are doing that, a surrounding community agreement. And then the process within the regulation lays out that if we're not able to come to an agreement, that we would, the parties would be then put into an arbitration process with an arbitrator making a decision on the final and best offer, which I think is somewhat a good process if you can't come to an agreement. Because in the process that's laid out, it's your final and best, so that if they only can pick one or the other, and if it's not reasonable, it forces, and I've done numerous arbitrations and previously, but essentially, if you're unreasonable in your proposal, then it's likely that the arbitrator will choose the other one. So it's one or the other, and that forces the parties to sort of get into the middle and be more reasonable in their final offer if they're not able to come to an agreement. But I think the talks have been going well with the selectmen, myself, and them. So we'll see where that turns out, but we are in that process. In regards to the casino, that's a little bit further away from Saugus in the sense of we have a community that's in between us. We're not abutting. We have petitioned for surrounding community status. We did meet with the Wynn folks and representatives. They took the position that they would object to us being considered designated as a surrounding community. They were open to continued discussions, but didn't want to designate us under the statute. And we actually have, we've moved up on the timescale, but we have a hearing scheduled tomorrow in front of the Mass Gaming Commission with the Wynn representatives to argue the impacts that we feel that are going to affect Saugus and why we should be designated under the statute as a surrounding community. And that's at, I believe 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So that the Gaming Commission will take testimony. We have been preparing for that all week. And we'll have some people testifying and giving testimony, such as the police and fire. Obviously, essentially, there are at least the issues that we've identified looking at it in conjunction with the regulations is, public safety, how that's going to impact us, as well as one of the concerns, I think, from a financial standpoint, is how restaurants and businesses will be affected, the entertainment up on Route 1 with a casino coming in. Obviously, I think we know that casinos are built to attract people in the community. to frequent there and stay there, and that's why they have restaurants and entertainment, and obviously the gaming. So it's you know, looking at if we're $1 million dependent in our operating budget out of an $80 million budget, you know, that's obviously a concern. If that dips even 10% or 20%, you're talking $100,000 to $200,000 in present-day value. So we have been surveying and talking with businesses up on Route 1 to find out what their concerns are, and I think they're concerned also. They do have, you know, rewards programs and whatnot that they talk about, and we will be looking at that, and the selectmen, and we've talked about that, setting something up so that the businesses can be involved in that. But you know, obviously, depending on the success of that type of program, and the reason why they have it is they want people to continue to sort of get gift certificates to frequent the places outside of the casino. But those are some of the issues. Obviously, traffic is an issue that we need to be concerned about. That's a little bit more scientific, and I think, you know, the gaming and the addiction of gambling, obviously, how that would affect our community. So those are some of the things that, you know, we'll be presenting. And, you know, I think part of it is we are trying to look at being proactive with development and trying to look at ways of taking advantage of if casinos go in those areas. But I think historically, as everybody that's been involved, the town has not been somewhat suited or acceptable to development in those means. So that I think that certainly puts us at a more disadvantage in considering an impact. So obviously our job is to make the best possible argument of the impacts and how they're going to affect the residents in the community. And then after that fact, trying to put a dollar amount to what mitigation factors and costs would alleviate that, and then moving forward with a plan of trying to take advantage in a positive way, that how we can effectively enhance businesses and help the bottom line for the operating budget for the town. And I think that you always hear, I think it's sort of, you know, a way of looking at the contrast is that, you know, obviously a casino going in either location is going to be a huge boom to the economy, from the state budget to regionally development and whatnot. And then we have to balance how, especially from, you know, from a financial standpoint, how is that one going to affect our finances and our operating budget and our ability to provide services to the town on a sustainable basis, as well as what the impact would be to the community. So that's where we are with the process, and, you know, we will be at the hearing tomorrow. I know some of the selectmen are going in, and I know that some of the selectmen will be attending, and
I'll be attending.
Right. So, and we'll see what the Gaming Commission says is in regards to the one location.
Madam Chairman,
Selectman Dever.
if I could just make a comment. I know that these negotiations are sensitive. I would simply like to thank the manager for going forward, as we requested, to pursue the community agreement, or the surrounding community agreement. And I would also like to thank you and your staff, as well as Selectman Allen and Chairwoman Fiella, who have worked, as well as the manager, and attended many, many meetings over the last couple of weeks. As the manager said, this is very fluid, it's been very time-consuming, and I just wanted to commend everyone for their hard work and in representing the board. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Okay. Mr. Manager, anything else you'd like to bring up?
That's all I have this evening.
Sure.
Trying to get out, hopefully, and early this evening at some point, because I have still work to do tonight to prepare for the presentation tomorrow.
Okay, this brings us to members' comment period. We started with Mr. Allen last meeting. We're going to start with Mrs. Dever this evening.
I only have one request. I know we've asked you for a lot of information, and I appreciate that, Mr. Manager, but after attending the Mass Municipal Association annual meeting on Saturday with Chairman Fiala and Selectman Allen, one of the things in listening to Senator Warren and Senator Markey was flood mitigation.
We were given an update, and we were told that those applicants or those residents who were new to being placed into a floodplain would have a one-year reprieve. But those that are in a floodplain currently are going to look at some very substantial rate increases. And although they are working hard on an affordability criteria, I just would like an update. If you can't give it to me this evening, that's fine, but at our next meeting, where do we stand as a community with our flood mitigation plan? Because our community is going to have some significant impacts. I think Selectman Panetta has also asked. So I know you're really busy, but if you could just put together some information for us so that we can share it with the public, I'd appreciate it.
So what I can give you as an update, and we do talk about this every couple of weeks to get an update, is that our Economic Development Coordinator as well as the Building Commissioner are been assigned to dealing with this, and they are putting information together and trying to look through it. It's somewhat complicated. I mean, there's to figure out different avenues the town can take and then take to mitigate, and there's different degrees. So they are working on that. It hasn't gone by the wayside, so they are putting things together, and I'll get an update and find out where they're at.
And one last thing, Madam Chairman, through you. Mr. Manager, have you been able to set up a meeting with the state delegation? Again, I know you are busy with the board, or at least to give some input as to some prioritized projects you'd like to see go into the state budget with their assistance. We do have a letter back from Representative Wong, but he needed even more detail on your transportation bond bill. So I know that a lot is happening and the budget process is rapidly progressing, but if we should put some ideas together.
Yeah, two things. One is that we're meeting with the department heads, and that's sort of where we get a guideline of some of the needs that they have that we put together. And generally, the board is the ones that you guys usually set up. When I was on the board, we would set up a meeting with the delegation to come in, and we have an open discussion. So anytime you want to have that, I'm available and be willing to do that. In the meantime, we're, trying to gather some of the priorities, which I don't think have changed so much from in the previous years, but at some point in the next couple of weeks, I'll put a document together that'll go out. And regarding the letter that you're referring to, I think there might have been some confusion on, that was actually for support on an MAPC grant. So I didn't, when I got the letter, I don't think it was maybe not read or understood.
Because it seems, it would seem sad to me that we could not give them some projects that we would, on a wish list, so to speak. They may not come to fruition through the budget cycle, but I know that they want to help this community and they want ideas, and they would appreciate input. So thank you. That's all I have tonight, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Panetta?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the town manager, were you able to get those two bridge reports to the DPW? That was a request from our last meeting, and did they give you any feedback?
They did. The DPW director went out and inspected himself, and he deemed them to be in satisfactory or better condition. But he was looking, one more time, he was looking at specific improvements that may be needed or cleanup or whatnot, so that he can put a project list together and amounts to that. But in the sense of the structural, he felt that they're satisfactory or better, the bridges that you named.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Chair, we haven't set up our budget meetings, have we?
No.
So I believe February 15th is a Saturday, I think.
That's when the town manager has indicated that you will have the budget to us.
So he'll have it by the Saturday? And the 17th, I believe, is a holiday?
The holiday, correct.
So would you like to set up meetings now,
We
or do you
can-
want to wait until we receive the budget?
I'd rather see the budget or have a little more conversation with the town manager so we don't box anybody in, but it would probably be that following week, and we have a meeting scheduled for the 25th anyway. Is that okay?
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Castanetti?
I just want to go, we got an email today, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at their email yet, regarding the Board of Selectmen meeting with UMass Collins Center. Did you see that today?
I have not seen.
There have been 2 evenings set up Wednesday, February 12th, and Thursday, February 13th, from 5:30 to 7:30 for these meetings. There'll be a half an hour long after the individual meetings are held. A meeting with the board and the UMass representatives will be scheduled. It says, please contact me as soon as possible. This is the manager's office with a date and time that's convenient for you. So thank you for your cooperation. I don't know if we want to, I guess we're going to be meeting as a group as well, so I don't know if you want to talk about that this evening or not.
Should you want me to? Through you, Madam Chairman. So essentially what they're doing now is trying to lay out the groundwork for meeting with individuals and the department heads as well, because they're explaining the process and explaining the format that they're looking for. And what they do is they meet with the Board of Selectmen individually, and then they'll come and do a group meeting, and then we'll have full discussions on the process in a public forum. So there's a value added to that, and that's the process that they recommend.
I mean, I'm flexible either.
So if you need the other dates, we can do that. We're just trying to get as many, because we're now also setting up with the chairmans of the different committees, commissions and boards, and stuff like that. So that's what they're trying to gather, get everybody sort of the buy-in and understand it and feedback.
I'm available either day as well.
I think that the way I read it, it's going to be one night, right?
I think, I'm not,
What-
to be honest, I'm not, I think there's 2 nights that they picked, because there's, obviously, it's easier for people that are in these boards, that are volunteers, that work during the day.
So we can individually say either the 12th or the 13th is what you're indicating.
And if
But I
not,
think
then we can,
collectively, we have to come up with a night when we can meet together
Meet
as a group.
together as a group.
Either one of those nights.
Okay.
What days of the week is it, Steve?
yeah, the 2 night,
What days of the week?
Wednesday, the
12th
12th,
and
or
the
Thursday, the
13th.
13th.
Tuesday, which day?
Wednesday and
flexible.
Thursday.
Thursday.
I can.
those are for the individual meetings.
Yeah, but it says we have, we're not, what are you saying, we're not meeting the same, one of those nights?
No.
No, we'll pick
Okay,
another
all right,
night
okay.
that works for everybody, and then we can, because we're going to have to, obviously, there's going to be a long process and
Okay.
setting priorities and figuring out what amount of money is sort of acceptable to move forward with a 5-year capital plan and whatnot.
Okay, all right, yeah. I read it as we were supposed to get together after the meetings that night, but it said it'll be scheduled later on, so I guess we can determine our own times,
Correct.
contact the manager's office.
The easy,
Half an hour meeting.
the easy part is the meetings and gathering the data.
I'm sorry?
I said the easy part is having the meetings and gathering the data.
Okay. So I guess we'll respond individually then, right?
Right.
Great.
Anything else you
I
want?
have nothing else, Madam Chairman.
Okay. I do have something I'd like to bring up. I know that we've discussed the Houston Street issue several times, and I did speak to the economic developer, Mr. Luongo, and he told me that he had spoken to one of the neighbors down there who has been kind of spearheading the communications. And as you know, we have now received the way-lose covenant on that property, and that property does have some pretty significant restrictions on it. Mr. Luongo indicated to me that there had been some recent complaints of activity down there, but when the building inspector, I believe it was had gone down there, he was not able to see any activity. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think they've been frequenting, they've been going down there on occasion to take a
Okay,
look
maybe
what's
they're
going on.
going onto the wrong street, because I believe they're entering from Clifton Street now. I just received a phone call this afternoon that there has been a tremendous amount of traffic that is using that unpaved road right behind the station on Lincoln Avenue.
Laurel? You mean down by the Laurel Street?
That
off
area,
of Lincoln
yes.
Ave?
But there has been, the last couple of days, there has been significant traffic going onto the property. So I don't know, I didn't personally speak to the resident on Houston Street. I spoke to Mr. Luongo, but I don't know if perhaps this is twofold. Number one, any traffic going down, and there just hasn't been an opportunity for the building inspector to have witnessed that. But we were under the impression, I think you were as well, that there was nothing going on down there at this given time, other than to perhaps go and talk to the church about entering through Muzzy Street. But the phone call I received today, yeah, the traffic is pretty pronounced coming in that direction. So I think perhaps if we look over there and see what's going on over there.
It's interesting because unless they've taken it out, I thought there was a gate.
When I went down there a few weeks ago, somebody had suggested I go down there. There was no gate down there. There was a mound of dirt down there, but I did not see a gate. But I think that Mr. Luongo has told me that staff, I guess it would be for staff, when I talked to him last night as to when meetings would be taking place between the communities so that the information, both communities would have it, as to what is going on down on that property. He indicated to me that they were going to be working collaboratively. I do want to be notified of those meetings. I do not want to overstep my bounds or any member of the board's bounds, but I always think it's important that we're the ones who are getting these phone calls, and we are the ones who receive the emails that we made promises, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manager, we made promises to these folks that they would be communicated with. I understand the holidays were here. I understand that people get busy. But ultimately, many people feel, by nature of being in political office, that, oh boy, I went down there and I gave them my concerns and I raised them and they seemed interested, but I never heard back. We agreed to keep these people informed, and we're going to keep our promise.
I know that.
So however we're going to get that done, it needs to get done, because I, for one, and I'm sure you feel the same way, and I'm sure everybody on this board does, if we give our residents an assurance that they're going to hear from us, and if perhaps, the reason I say have one of us involved too, if there is something that we can communicate from the town hall to the constituents, I can't think that anybody on this board would say no to that. By all means, we'll absolutely get that information out. But we just don't want to see, and I'm sure you don't either, nobody wants to see somebody say, did you folks forget about me? And we haven't. We haven't
Nobody's
forgotten.
forgotten.
History comes up every time.
I spoke with the Economic Development Coordinator today.
Yeah.
And he did say that he had reached out to the gentleman that was the liaison.
Correct,
there
he did tell me
and
that.
talked to him, and he wanted to, set up a meeting and see if the neighbors wanted to discuss anything. And I guess he said that he was okay at this point, that he didn't want that to happen, but that he was glad that he had spoken to him, so.
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Devon.
If I could just follow up on your comments. I agree with everything the chairman has said, and I understand everyone is working very hard. These neighbors have been extremely patient, and there is nothing more frustrating for a neighborhood is to bring something forward and be told by the community that they were unable to locate it, they were unable to see it. We have a letter from the entire neighborhood saying, hey, we have a problem. So I really would like that meeting, a meeting, to take place, because right now you have just a couple people who are dealing with the developer, the community development person, Mr. Rupp, who works for both Revere and for ourselves. We need to be on the same playing field. This is where these people live. This is their home. They are Saugus residents. A developer is a business. This developer does not live in Saugus, but the actions are impacting the neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhood. So this is an issue that needs attention, and I agree, we cannot not just communicate with them. The good weather is coming. I'm sure there'll be more activity down there, and we need to be unified in working with these people.
Did Mr. Luongo say when that meeting, I don't think it had been planned yet, correct, for the two communities to meet?
No, I think he has, what he explained to me is he has a meeting with somebody in Revere, that's part of the Revere, and I'm not sure what the person's title, but he's meeting with them to sort of in person rather than, they've been exchanging emails to sort of sit down to try to get on the same page of, what he knows and what they know. But I think, part of the development is that these developers don't reveal anything, and they may not even have any plans, so they're not as forthcoming if they do have something until they actually have it worked out. But my understanding is that there's no, what they're relaying to through their channels is that they don't have, there's nothing in the plans of any development at this point.
With the email being so quick for everybody today, what I would ask you, Mr. Manager, Having worked in physicians' offices for many, many years, and patients would come in and sit down in an examining room, in a waiting room, the worst thing that I could do to that patient if I saw them was not say a word. The most important thing I could say to that patient is, I see you, I'll be with you as soon as I can. That same theory applies here. Even if you're not ready to do something, even if you don't have a tremendous amount of information, it would be important to be able to, Mr. Camuso has given us the email address, just throw him an email, whether it's once every other week, that we met. I don't have anything further to update you on, but we haven't forgotten you. I think that that is very important for the people to hear, and I don't think it takes a lot of effort, correct me if I'm wrong, just to keep your daily log and get back to people and say, we haven't forgotten you right now. It's pretty much status quo. As soon as we have information, we'll be providing that to you. Is that a reasonable request, do you think?
I certainly have relayed that information to the Economic Development Coordinator.
And as I say, if it is something that they feel is overwhelming, if Mr. Luongo needs some assistance in that, then by all means forward me the information, and on behalf of the board, I will get in touch with the constituents. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks. Does anybody else have anything else they want to bring up? That brings us to the citizens' comment
How about
period.
myself?
Excuse me?
Excuse me. Madam Chair, I want to bring up the part with the subcommittees, if I could,
I
please.
left you right out of this equation.
You did. But that is okay. So what I wanted to bring up tonight with the board is that we got two major initiatives that are pretty much in their infant stages still, and that's the capital improvement plan and the economic development of Saugus. And in my opinion, the success of these initiatives will be pivotal to whether or not Saugus will proceed forward in a positive manner. These subcommittees will be responsible to report to the Board of Selectmen and to the public on all matters pertaining to these individual initiatives. This will allow the board and the public to be informed and educated at all times. It is going to take an effort by the entire community to achieve our goals. So it's my intention to make a motion tonight, if approved, if the board goes along with it, to create two subcommittees consisting of two board members each, pretty much leaving out Madam Chairman so that you could oversee both committees, and we have someone to actually be able to talk to. And I know that Selectman Deva has shown interest in the capital improvement. I don't want to speak for anybody. I know that Selectman Castanetti was interested in the economic development. I'm flexible, so I'd want to see which direction that each person would want to go.
By all means, Mrs. Bernard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When Madam Chair and I were on the school committee, we had many subcommittees. Just one question, though. The Economic Development Committee, how would this be different than the Economic Development Committee that's already in place? Or would this two-person be part of that Economic Development Committee?
It wouldn't necessarily be part of it. It would, I mean, those are public meetings. They could attend those meetings, but that's their separate committee that I believe belongs to the town manager. So pretty much what we'd be doing is, we need to have some sort of a liaison where people can go gather the information, bring it back to the board, and then from the board, we can educate the public with it. So it's going to be us digging, getting the information that we need, gathering the information, and be able to report back, considering that in my short period of time on the board, what I find as being difficult is because we can only have conversations with two of us at a time. It's very difficult to have conversations to gather this information, that at least if we had two people going in different directions on both initiatives, that I believe is very important to this town, because this is definitely what's going to take us forward, that they can be involved. They can, the ones that would be on the economic development could go to those meetings, attend those meetings. They could have conversations with Mr. Luongo. If people ask questions, those would be the people that would go get the answers from the appropriate people so that we can report back to them. And I also believe that would take a little bit of a load off your shoulders too, Madam Chairman.
So I'm going to ask a question back. So the Economic Development, we'll call it the sub-team of two, those folks would go to the Economic Development meetings and kind of serve, almost like serve, go hand in hand with your serving.
And get involved with all the doings that, like, for instance, when we just went through with the mill district and with the overlays with the mills, with the mill district, to be able to explain, so that we have someone that's sitting on this board that can explain what's going on, so people in other parts of the community that weren't necessarily part of that and see what's going on, because eventually what's going to happen is with the Mill District, we got all the folks that were involved with that at the Mill District neighborhood. But the people that live on the other side of town actually understand what is really going on. So this, because eventually what's going to happen is if we go forward with this economic development of Saugus and we do it correctly, everyone's going to be touched by it eventually.
No, I'm not against this at all. I just,
Right.
because it kind of sounds like when I wanted to be a liaison to
A
the
liaison, I
different
thought
boards,
so.
and, I mean, the more hands-on we are, I think, the better, again, goes back to education, the more we know and the better we can serve our
And
constituents.
then once again, this would segue right into doing the surveys. Those would be the groups that would be responsible for gathering what information we think would be important from the folks.
So, I'm sorry, the economic the economic development sub-team, there's already a group together, so they have someone that they can go to, and we have Bob Luongo, there's all the overlays, I mean, I think we all went to the yacht club when they had that review, and then there was one over at Cliftondale the night we had the meeting, and then we heard Peter Rossetti last night talk about 2 more overlays on Route 1. So there's a lot of activity already, but there's not much activity right now in the capital improvement plan, the CIP. So I guess that subcommittee would be mostly working with the town manager and then maybe the DPW on capital needs. I mean, how do you foresee that? I mean, I understand the economic development, the double team, and not that I disagree with these 2 groups. I'm just trying to understand what that group, who that group would be working with.
What we're trying to, my perception is that we're trying to create, first of all, we have to keep groups of 2 only because we can't go 3 or more.
I understand.
Here's the quorum. So what would happen is they would become the experts. Because obviously we have to be involved with, all 5 of us have to be involved with the capital improvement plan. But all of us can't be everywhere at once, so that at least we have a group of people spread out that can gather the information and bring it back to us.
But the capital improvement, there's no group right now that the 2 people would go to, so they'd be really working, I would think, hand in hand with the town manager.
That
No?
would definitely
Yes?
be part of the equation. And then as it grows and as it moves forward, as we get involved with what are those folks?
Collins.
The Collins Center.
Once we get involved with the Collins Centers, if we need someone to reach out and get answers, then we have questions pertaining to different things that they set up for the foundation that they're going to be creating for us. Those 2 members would become those experts.
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Dever.
Again, I want to commend Selectman Allen for the idea. I think it's a great idea. I very much have an interest in the capital improvement plan, as I'm sure we all do. But this is just another avenue to work cooperatively and collaboratively, and not all 5 of us have to be at every single meeting. So we're working for one another, with one another. So I would see it initially for the capital improvement plan as, yes, working with the Collins Center, yes, working with the town manager, getting as much information as possible, but really as a liaison as well to the community and getting their input. That is vital. And the community, the economic development, many people have commented that they, it's interesting, but they want to know more about it, and are the businessmen on there, what's the input? What's the involvement? Or is it just a small group of people, a small core of people? So I see this as an opportunity to grow and to do outreach, and we all can't be everywhere at once. So I think, this is an opportunity, like I say, to work together and work with one another. So congratulations, good job,
Thank you.
good idea.
I'm just taking it all in.
He's quiet.
So then I guess I'll move forward with it, because I'd like to I'd like to put it in a form of a motion, but before I put it in a form of a motion, I want to make sure that the folks agree with where they'll be. So I understand that Selectman Dever would be interested with the capital improvement plan. Would Selectman Cassinetti be interested in the economic development?
Yes.
And then reaching out to Selectman Panetta, is there a category that you feel most comfortable with, or?
I'm good with it. I'm a finance person, so it would probably make most sense if I'm working with Maureen.
Okay? So then I would volunteer myself as the economic development, so then I'd like to put in a form of a motion that we create 2 subcommittees, one for the capital improvement plan that would consist of Selectman Panetta and Selectman Dever, and one that would consist of the economic development, which would be Selectman Casanetti and Selectman Allen.
Seconded by the chair. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much, Mr. Allen. Okay, this brings us to citizens' comment period. Is there someone here who would like to speak? Thank you. Right up to the podium, sir, and give your name and address.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Jeff Moses, 3 South Street, town meeting member from Precinct 9. I'm standing here today because of the great news we talked about earlier about the grant for the fire department. It's very welcome. I've been on the fire department for 30 years. It's the best news I've heard, in that time. It's incredible. You talk about the mixed emotions between overtime and manpower. We've always been offered that. Different town managers, we've always gone with the manpower, because we've always been short, so it's very welcome. As you all, well, most of you should know, Mrs. Viella and Deva were on the town meeting when I proposed that we do a subcommittee to study the feasibility of running the ambulance to the fire department. We're very close to making an announcement to the town meeting as to our findings, favorably, I might add. The biggest stumbling block we've had with this from day one is the startup cost, somewhere between $800,000 to $850,000. 8 men would go a long way towards cutting half to 2/3 of that. That would cover about $600,000 of that. The rest would be supplies and equipment. The reason why we want to do it that way is it would add 2 men to our shifts, obviously, as the manager said, and a way of sustaining it. An ambulance service can generate, well, we have information that up to $1.3 million has been generated by the ambulance service. We would get less than that because we don't service advanced life support. We'd just be basic life support. We're all EMTs. We're not paramedics yet. We could strive to that over a period of years through experience. You've got a window of 2 years of operating at the lower level before we can advance to the next level. So we could progress to that if we chose to, if we did this. We look at this as a potential seed money, to quote a past manager, Collins, when he did all the capital improvement program 20 years ago. He always talked about having seed money. This would be a seed money to start that program that could sustain it, as Mrs. Panetta talked about, and I think Mr. Castanetti, about sustaining these 8 men. This would definitely go away towards generating money. There'd be firefighter EMTs trained both ways. And by the money generated by running the ambulance, we would pay for these once the grant ran out. The grant is a perfect opportunity. It's for 2 years. We would cover the training period of going to the academy and all becoming EMTs in the same period of time. It's almost ideal. It's like you couldn't ask for a better scenario time-wise for this to happen. Like, as I said before, it's been 2 years in the making of studying, and we've just been waiting to, dot the i's and cross the t's, so to speak. And we're very close to doing that right now. We're just waiting for a few financials to come out to make our presentation, but we're very close. As the manager said, the city of Melrose went the same route. They hired the men. They hired 8 men the same way. They got 4 and 4. We're getting 8 altogether. But on the same premise of running the ambulance, and that's what they do over there. They are now running their ambulance, and they're advancing to the second level of doing the ALS. So they've gone one step further. It seems to be a win-win. Everybody we've talked to, we've had the manager from the town of Reading. They've been doing it since 1977 with great success. Melrose has just adopted it in the last 3 years. Lynn has been doing it. I went to a fire about a month ago down in Lynn. The first 2 guys in the fire to perform rescue duties was off their rescue truck. And that's part of the EMT firefighter status. All the time in Melrose, when they have fires, their first obligation is to work as firefighters. Second obligation is as EMTs. So just to let you know, this is another option that we have of sustainability to keep these men on all the time. Because I know that you hear it at FinCom all the time, what's the sustainability of the program? And believe me, this is a perfect opportunity to do that. We are confident that, I would say 95% or more, that we will at least cover the cost of the manpower and probably a lot of the equipment. That the town would probably have to pay for the equipment, which they've never said they've had a problem doing. Always been a problem with the manpower. So this is a perfect scenario to do it.
Madam Chairman?
Mrs. Dever.
I had the pleasure of sitting on the ambulance committee, and am very familiar with the hard work that was done.
One of the first persons I asked for.
And the bottom line here is that Saugus has 2,200 medical runs each year. It's an extremely lucrative community in the world of emergency medicine. And so we are very correct when we see that Melrose was able to do this. They had a backup private ambulance initially for their advanced life support, and it would be a sin to have 8 firefighters and lose them because we couldn't sustain them. So I don't think we should shut the door on any opportunity to sustain 8 brand-new firefighters that will go through the academy and also be able to provide a service that they now provide and respond to every call. But 2,200 calls, and I don't remember the breakdown of basic versus advanced, but the majority of the calls, I believe, were basic, and it is something that could very well be done by this community, and I don't think we should shut the door on any opportunity. So I hope you will come forward and you will talk with FinCom and town meeting and really reach out to the community because...
Yeah, we're very close to doing that. But and
I wish you luck.
we haven't had any meetings since the grant was accepted, so we haven't really talked to the manager about what's going on with this. So the opportunity came up that you were talking about this and the transfer of the new ambulance companies. A lot of stuff has been in flux. So when the grant came through, we thought it was a great opportunity to jump onto, and I just hope that we can keep that in mind when this comes around. You know, again, like I say, it's sustainability. You know, we would hate to get to the point where we get 8 more men on and you get used to having them around in the way that we would employ them, and then through attrition or whatever, that we go back to what we are right now in, you know, anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So this is a way to keep that from happening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work. It sounds fabulous. Sounds fabulous for the community.
Like I said, we're very close to doing it now. We're just waiting on a few financial things, and when those come up, we will make a presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Please keep us informed. Thanks again. Would anybody else like to be heard this evening? Come before the board. Seeing none, we do have on the agenda to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the town manager's contract. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? And that motion would be not to return to open session.
Madam Chairman, I'll make the motion to go into executive session to discuss the manager's contract. The people to attend will be Selectman Allen, Selectman Dever, Selectman Fiella, Selectman Panetta, Selectman Castanetti, Town Manager Scott Crabtree, and at the conclusion of executive session, we will adjourn from there, not return to open session.
Seconded by the chair. That does not recall roll call, correct? It does? We're going downstairs to the conference room. If you'd call the roll.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Castanetti?
Yes.
Ms. Dever?
Yes.
Ms. Panetta?
Yes.
Ms. Fiella?
Yes. Thank you all, and good night.